we've had a few different terrorist attacks over the last couple of days, as well as incidents that are also rather suspicious. It's almost like we're starting things out with a bang. No pun intended. Yeah, okay. So, secondly, the truck was filled with fireworks, and so you can see the outcome there. I've seen Cybertrucks explode. I've seen Teslas light on fire. That's not what that looks like. That is not just a Tesla engine lighting on fire on its own. What's up, Captain? Good to see you. Happy New Year. And obviously, I'm not the only one who thinks so. So let's have a look at this.
Officials in Vegas talking now about the Cybertruck attack there at the Trump Hotel. Let's listen in.
As many of you went to sleep last night, and I just want to give you an update on a lot of what it is that we found through the processing of the Cybertruck. This is a joint investigation involving the FBI, the ATF, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and these folks worked through the night and found a lot of stuff that is very useful for this investigation. As you look at this Cybertruck here, we had to transport this down to our fleet services so that we could really get through this thing. And I remind you that the subject inside wasn't able to be removed for a very long period of time because he was burnt beyond recognition. And so as we continue to move through this, I'm going to talk a little bit about his identity.
Unfortunately, Captain, positivity is not what you can expect from this stream today, but it's been a decent start to the year, I suppose.
And what we believe, but I would like to highlight a couple of things that the teams found inside of the Cybertruck that are useful to the investigation. And that, first and foremost, is a military identification. We also found a passport. We found a Desert Eagle 50 caliber semi-automatic pistol.
Very big gun.
And if you'll notice on a lot of these guns that we're going to talk about here, they're almost just burnt beyond recognition as well.
I believe they were both special forces of some kind.
There's a SLR model B30 semi-automatic firearm. Number of fireworks that were still in the vehicle that had to be removed. Notably, we found an iPhone and a smartwatch, and then several credit cards were also in the name of our subject. Our subject is 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger. He's of Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yeah,
born
sorry,
July
non-combat. He was the IT one. One of them was non-combat, but they were both like veterans. So
22nd of 1987. Now, as you'll see here
both of these individuals, including the NOLA guy, were American-born, American-raised, and U.S. military veterans. This continues the trend of right-wing violence, but these all do tie in together to a greater narrative.
A picture of his driver's license. Let's see. The question really still remains for me, and I know that there's a lot of you folks in the media that are identifying this person as the person.
I'm not throwing them away as garbage, sister to all. I'm pointing that out because these were Southern in red states, were former military. Those are all, these are all things that would generally be looked at in a investigation to see whether there was a risk of extremism. We know that there's quite a, well, rather, yes, the government, but we do know that right-leaning and former military officials or former military in general often do tie in together in the case of domestic violence, domestic terrorism. These two things tend to be often related. It's not just your average American going and doing terrorism. It's usually these guys. And so it is important to make note of that because there is a theme here. We've covered it before of risks of extremism in the U.S. military. We've looked at the Pentagon's report on the subject, and so it matters.
In our vehicle. As I mentioned to you already, his body is burnt beyond recognition, and I do still not have confirmation 100% that that is the individual that was inside of our vehicle.
So here's something really weird that's come out on the subject. Apparently, before So we know that this was an intentional detonation. 100%. We know that it was intentional.
As I'm calling it now, the subject or person of interest, I will not come back until I have the confirmation through DNA or medical records that this is indeed, in fact, the subject inside of the vehicle. Now, further complicating this identification of this individual, we also discovered through the coroner's office that the individual had sustained a gunshot wound.
All right, so that's what they're covering. A dead man switch could be a possibility, but also, okay, first of all, it's really difficult to verify information immediately following something like this. And even though it's been about a day, it's still quite close to immediately following. But some of the threads that I'm seeing, I'm still working on verification for this, show that like he had a Signal app, for example, that changed username and Signal key after the attack took place, which would indicate, if true, another person working with him on the subject. But again, verifying these kinds of claims is difficult, and not to say that that's true or not. It's just something that I've seen. There's a lot of stuff up in the air on the subject, whether or not it was a dead man switch, whether or not this related to New Orleans, which I would think, yes, I think this does relate to New Orleans. I do appreciate the lack of fear-mongering on the subject of, at least from the FBI in this case, of we're not going to say that these two are related just yet because we can't evidentiate this, but also like they're definitely looking into it.
To the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle. One of the handguns was found at his feet inside of the vehicle. Obviously, in how we're trying to identify him, and I'm feeling comfortable to give you this information, is a tremendous amount of substantial evidence to include he rented the Turo vehicle.
Yes.
There are two tattoos.
That's one of the tie-ins with New Orleans, is that both of these vehicles were rented through the same company, Turo, as well as both of these suspects are U.S. veterans. They both served on the same military base, might I add. And on top of this, I mean, two attacks in vehicles on the same day, a day apart even. It's too much of a coincidence for all of these things to not be considered. Now, can things happen coincidentally? Yes, but that's not what I want to base analysis on, is, oh, well, it could be a coincidence. Most of the time, things aren't a coincidence.
Which was on the stomach and one of which is on the arm, that we can see bits and pieces of it as in comparison to what it is that we now know he had on his body. That has given us a lot of confidence that this is, in fact, the same person. As well as which the clearly obvious, which is the credit cards, the military identification, the passport. And then furthermore, as you'll see here in just a very short period of time, we tracked his movements from Colorado to Las Vegas. And in a number of the photographs that we were able to determine, he was the individual that was driving the vehicle. And also, I'd like to iterate this point to you. We still have only ever seen him in this vehicle, and we're not aware of any other subjects involved in this particular case.
Now, that is being said specifically to avoid too much of a tie-in with New Orleans, but again, you know, it's difficult to not think these two are related. Did you see the CCTV footage? The truck was gone. How the fuck did they recover the documents? Well, actually, we'll go into that. I did see the CCTV footage, and I also, once we're done with this, I have a retired Special Forces engineer who wrote a thread analyzing the blast, and we'll have a look at that. Whether or not the documents burned is not necessarily tied to the blast in general. Most of the blast was actually contained in an area, so it is possible. Yeah, I believe that those documents did exist in the vehicle prior to the explosion. That's as far as I'll go with it.
Now, I would like to acknowledge a couple of things because I know what's going on in the social media world, and there are a number of things in this case that are similar to the attack in New Orleans. We do know that our subject here served in the military. In fact, he's a current member of the military.
Yes. So
Both of the subjects served at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. What we do know about that is it's a very large military base, and we have no record that they served in the same unit or even at the same years at Fort Bragg, something that continues to remain under investigation. I also know that they both served in Afghanistan in 2009. We don't have any evidence that they were in the same province in Afghanistan, the same location, or the same unit. Again, something else.
All of these things are important, but they don't discount not only the ability for these two to have been working together, but also for this to be real. You know, it doesn't discount that. These just are safeties that we need to consider because we don't want to immediately jump to conclusions. I'm actually glad that we're not doing that. 1 second. I only had one of the lights on today because it's hot, but then I looked at the camera and I was like, I don't actually like it with just one light on. It's important that we need to verify facts before we start making claims here. And whether or not I think this is the case, which I do, I still would prefer to take it slowly here. It's not like we're at any lack of other people already doing it. If you go on Twitter right now, half of the stuff that you'll see is likely fake, likely misinformation, likely misinterpreted. All of these are specific systems that are functioning as intended to. Anytime something like this happens, a bunch of people go and lie about it. So
that remains under investigation. And we also know, of course, that they both used the rental company Turo to rent their vehicles. As far as his military background, it's been confirmed by DOD that he was indeed in the United States Army. He was also a Green Beret operations sergeant who spent most of his time at Fort Carson, Colorado.
Look, on the subject of what you just said, iodine and borderline, yes, I like things verified, considering the Truth Social post immediately. I did say prior to the election that we should have had an expectation of, if Trump were to win, which he did, that we would see something like this, of an increased reporting, not only, but also instance of violent crime, terrorism, attacks, whether or not they were already occurring, they would be more publicized, and we would see more violence in the country. Now, not in any way, shape, or form claiming that anyone in the government played a role in this. It could have happened, obviously. We definitely do that kind of stuff within our government and in other countries. But we don't have any evidence to indicate that that's true at the moment. So I'm just going to leave that there. But what I will say is the last time Trump was president, there were several instances in which there was large-scale violence that was committed by people under their control and was blamed on Antifa. Now, in this case, that's not what I think that they're doing. If they were, I would think that this would be in the most innocent way possible when it comes to media reporting, a way of building justification for incoming something like martial law or ICE or the deportations in general, using the National Guard on U.S. citizens. These would all be systems that build up to justifying actions such as that, and entirely expect that from this point forward. That's not going away. But whether or not these are actions that are coordinated by them for this purpose, we can't point to. Can't wait to see how Trump and Elon play the victim gear and grift more money. Well, you will see that, actually, not very long from now. Vizzy, I got the iPhone 16 Plus today. I'm happy. Well, I'm glad you enjoy your phone. I never liked iPhones, but to each their own. Trump is going to use this to kind of Patriot Act 2 when he gets in. Yeah, absolutely. Batman.
And in Germany.
Thank you for the 330
he was
followers,
on approved leave from Germany, where he was serving with the 10th Special Forces Group. He was also previously in the National Guard and the Army Reserve. I'd like to point out to you that through exceptional joint investigative effort, we've gotten to a place where we believe we can show you his route to Las Vegas.
That makes sense, Jump J. Elon did not plan this because just, again, we'll get back to this in a second, but this is how I know that Elon Musk didn't do this. Elon Musk, prior to this, had changed his name on Twitter to Kekius Maximus. Because, I don't know, he's Elon Musk. And he kept this going for a couple days. Imagine you're a journalist who's writing about Elon on X, and it goes Elon Musk, aka Kekius Maximus, on X. Immediately following, he changed his name back. So, I don't know whether or not, like, he had anything to do with this other than helping, as in giving those investigators video. I don't think so. This is too much of a to be a coincidence added on top of everything else. I don't believe it. No.
From Colorado, and Carlos will put up the map there for you. And we know that he rented the Cybertruck in Denver on December 28th.
Yes, he does.
We tracked his movements through the Tesla charging stations.
He needs rehab and therapy.
To Monument, Colorado on December 30th. On the 31st of December, the truck was charged in Trinidad, Colorado, Las Vegas, New Mexico, and Albuquerque and Gallup, New Mexico. On January 1st, the truck was charged in Holbrook, Flagstaff, and Kingman, Arizona. We last Vegas.
Yeah, there we go. And instead of listening to you go one by one, we can have a look at exactly the route that was taken, which is pretty clear. I don't think we need all of that now. Now, what the fuck is that banner picture of his? I don't know. We'll get more into that when we get to it. He needs to be booted off the internet for his own good and for the good of society. But if it makes you feel any better, NepFox, you're automatically following Elon Musk, even if you're not following Elon Musk on Twitter. The moment you get a Twitter account, you can't unfollow Elon Musk. Now, this is an analysis of the blast from the footage done by a retired Special Forces engineer sergeant, Green Beret, trained in construction and reduction of conventional and homemade explosives. He's like Tom from MySpace. Yeah, exactly. Now, the lobby video says that the vehicle lowered itself shortly after pulling up into the lobby, and then went boom. This suggests that the vehicle was functioning properly. There are videos of the car just pulling up, so it makes sense. Document cases of Tesla battery fires typically involve one of two things: a charging issue causing overheating, or motor vehicle collisions or crashes. Neither of which was the case here. There was no charging cord, there was no crash. It was an intentional explosion, which we know after the fact. The first frame of the blast shows a large fireball originating from under the rear of the vehicle and out of the front driver's side window of the blast. The speed at which the flames appear suggests a deflagration rather than detonation. The front driver's side window is down. Flames originate from the rear of the vehicle, under the truck, and then spread forward, as in there was likely an explosive device placed under the truck. The trunk lid can be seen intact, thrusted upwards with a fire underneath. This suggests a rapid pressure increase, typical with deflagration. Additionally, the metal exterior of the truck appears to remain intact. Rear driver's side window of the truck appears intact. Now, again, that's image 1, image 2. In image 3, we see the deflagration continues to follow the path of least resistance from the trunk, and the bulk of the flame is seen expanding upwards, as Shardsborg said earlier. Flames appear to spread minimal from underneath the vehicle in comparison, and this suggests that the main charge for the explosive detonated was in the trunk, or underneath it. And finally, in the fourth video, we see the fireworks coming out. Now, funny enough, actually, this was such a contained explosion that none of the glass of the building was damaged, and that's just interesting. I dipped into the cesspool of Twitter today after the attacks to see what they're sputtering out, and is it misinformation that he had a Ukraine flag or something? I thought I'd ask you. I haven't seen anything about a Ukraine flag at all, even on like threads that I'm not entirely sure about the validity of. So I would say probably not real. In the case of documented Tesla motor vehicle crashes that result in fires, reports show that the fires spread rapidly and do not deflagrate in the nature seen in this video. The vehicle was clearly not connected to a charger, and therefore the almost instantaneous explosion is consistent with explosives used in fireworks, gunpowder, and explosives such as ammonium nitrate-based charges. It's clear that an initiation occurred underneath, and the suspected fireworks in the rear directed the blast upwards, that the fireworks were likely stacked in the back in a crude attempt to make a main charge. Loose contact between fireworks likely prevented instantaneous and larger explosions. So that pretty much lines up with what we know of the subject, which is... It's concerning here more so not just not just the action itself, not just the possible connection to other attacks, but what's concerning to me here is how little attention is being paid to the media's reporting on the subject. Everyone's just expecting more and more data to come in, and CNN or Fox News to put it out and tell the truth, except every video that I've seen at the very least, they are holding parts of this back. They are unsure about certain things, so you can expect some things to be held back, and that kind of does make sense. But in other cases, it's just they're outright misinforming in some of these cases. Let's see what Fox News has to say about this.
What I also would like you to pay attention to on that video, as you see that, it looks like the exterior of that truck is completely intact.
Yeah, Oxpecker, that's what I'm saying. There's no way that these two aren't connected. They served on the same base.
This was a cyber truck, really limited the damage that occurred inside of the valet because it had most of the blast go up through the truck and out. In fact, if you look on that video, you'll see...
Yes, that's exactly what I'm mostly concerned about, is that seems to be the main focus, is the fact that it's a Cybertruck. I don't give a fuck that it's a Cybertruck at all. I don't care at all. But that's the main talking point, is this is a Cybertruck. Actually, wait, I can't go through this entire thread openly because there are sensitive photos in it. But to start off with, this is... Actually, hold on. There is now a community note on this, so that's helpful. Cool. Never mind. Disregard that one. Now, can move on to... I still don't know how you, set this up in a way that the timing of, the gunshot wound to the head before the explosion, the dead man switch theory is a possibility here, but then again, how would they know when to go about doing it? There was no reporting on phone data, even though they found a phone and a smartwatch, so maybe they'll come out with something on that in a minute, but that doesn't necessarily matter. Now, speaking of reporting in the media, and speaking of the other guy, the NOLA guy, here, have a look at just the way that this is being depicted is all even confused within their own media.
Elect Donald Trump put out a statement on social media earlier today that reads as follows. When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all the innocent victims and their loved ones.
Now, this was in response to the New Orleans shooter, the attack, but the New Orleans attack was another American-born Army veteran, or military veteran, rather. They're just not giving two fucks. Now, to Fox News' credit, something I never thought I would say.
Brave
The end of
officers
this video.
the New Orleans Police Department, the Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act
They
of
do
pure evil.
actually
Now, the former president
point
said
this out.
criminals coming in a statement, meaning into our country. But to be clear, Molly and Brian, the suspect was born in the United States. He served in the United States Army. He was a veteran. The FBI is the lead agency in this investigation.
I was genuinely actually shocked to hear Fox News fact-check Donald Trump.
Going through the social media and any other accounts associated with the suspect. But that incident.
And on the subject of whether or not these two are connected, as you said, they were both like the same type of attack to an extent. You know, one got out and started shooting afterward, but it was a vehicle-based attack that also, even the one in New Orleans had explosives in that vehicle. They just didn't go off. They weren't used. But then on top of all of this, right? These two were stationed in Afghanistan at the same time, plus other deployments as well. They were on the same base. Whether or not they orchestrated this alone is not something that you can just easily answer, right? You can't, there could be people involved in this that we don't even know. People that are not even in the country. They found an ISIS flag on, like, in the car, I believe. Actually, not on his person, on this guy in New Orleans. Was that real? Was that planted there for a purpose? Was that the point? Are these people mad about religion? Or is he mad about religion and the other one's just crazy? Are they mad about H-1B visas? There's a lot of questions that are out and unanswered, and a lot of them are good answers, good questions rather. With the New Orleans thing, it was like Fox yells through the megaphone, this truck came over the border, whispers in parentheses the next day, actually it came from Texas, and then turns back into the microphone, but fucking immigrants, am I right? I mean, that's just Fox News as a general rule of thumb. But I mean, here we go. Here's our shooter in New Orleans, and he definitely sounds very American.
Good evening. I'm Shamsuddin Jabbar, property manager with Blue Meadow Properties and team lead at the Midas Group at Core Realty. I just want to say hello and let you know a little bit about me. So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be.
So this guy is a nerd, right? Like he is not what you would expect from what he did. The attack in which he drove over 10 people, got out of the vehicle, and then started shooting. I don't look at this guy and think that. There's something off. There's absolutely something off. The ISIS flag was upside down. It was not flown upside down, but mounted upside down. I feel like someone in ISIS would know that, as well as someone who served in the military and was a specialist at IT stuff. Remember, ISIS used to post a bunch of shit online all the time. They were constantly posting on Twitter, on YouTube. They tried, I think, at some point. This guy should know what direction the ISIS flag is supposed to be. But even that, like that coincidence I can buy, the rest of them are just too much.
Responsive.
It's the progressive left. Yeah, exactly.
And take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch. So I've taken those skills and applied them to my career as a real estate agent.
He was a real estate agent. He was a nerd. And of course, the photo that they aired of him was this, where like he grew out his beard and didn't have a haircut. And they were like, oh my God, look, it's ISIS. It's the Muslims are coming through the southern border. Which, I mean, to be fair, the guy is Muslim, but not coming through the southern border, I'll tell you that much. Now, sorry, I had to switch the screen because there is some footage in this thread that I can't actually have up. Here we go. Here's a photo of the actual flag. I wouldn't have caught this at first, except like that's supposed to be a world, like a globe, isn't it? And I don't know. my brain says writing should be above the photo on a flag. If you're going to put words on a flag, you want to put the words on top and then the imagery on the bottom. But a guy who was in the military and an IT specialist in special forces, no less, would know this. They would know this. Now, are Americans stupid? Oftentimes. So, can forgive that, but there's too many coincidences piling up here. Too many. The AP said guns and pipe bombs were also found in the vehicle, according to Louisiana State Police. Obtained by the AP, the devices were concealed within coolers, were wired for remote detonation, the bulletin said, and a corresponding remote control was discovered inside the vehicle. The FBI said other potential explosive devices were also located in the French Quarter, according to intelligence bulletin. Surveillance footage captured 3 men and a woman placing multiple improvised explosive devices. Now, I have yet to hear more on whether or not there was other people involved. Again, this is Twitter immediately following terrorist attacks. Don't believe this shit immediately on seeing it. Get false flagged. Exactly. Well, that's what they're trying to, at the very least, indicate here. But is it a false flag or is it a false flag? There's a lot of options, right? Now, go. According to law enforcement officials, the Cybertruck exploded outside. The Trump Hotel was rented via the Turo app, appeared to be loaded with fireworks. Yep.
Let's talk about Las Vegas, because this has been a sort of interesting development.
It does feel like a psyop. And I will say, if it feels too much like one, it might be one, but that's kind of the whole point, is you can't really prove the existence of it or disprove it. It'll depend on what happens next for me, whether or not I in my head, believe this is a psyop. It depends on how they try and use this and how prepared they are.
You know, the images of the Cybertruck parked outside the Las Vegas Trump property went viral. You know, sort of, I think people thought it was an accident and then no one was hurt. And so there was a sort of bizarre symbolism, and then it was a Cybertruck, it was out Trump. As it's developed.
In this, so far, 18 seconds, I heard the word Cybertruck 6 times. Like this is what I was talking about earlier, with they're making this into an ad instead of talking about the potential collusion between the several terrorists that we've had.
Cybertruck, it was out Trump. As it's developed, it seems that this is being taken far more seriously. What have we learned about what authorities know and how they're investigating this?
Right, Chris. So according to the reporting of myself, my colleagues Andrew Blankstein and Kelly O'Donnell, right now, 3 senior U.S. law enforcement officials say that this explosion of a Tesla Cybertruck, kind of in the portico there where you saw that smoke rising from in front of Trump's property in Las Vegas, is being investigated, at least initially, as a potential act of terrorism, and that it was, quote, intentional. And there was a...
That was before they started going off about it, rather than saying that this could be. They started reporting on the actual messaging from the FBI, which is, we don't know. There could be a connection, but it may not be. We don't have any evidence. And they've just dropped it, it seems, for the most part, for now, until something more comes out about it. That PSYOP description is how I feel about Shu. Fair. When it comes to someone like a content creator, whether they are a PSYOP or not is not necessarily something I think about. It's more, are they controlled opposition? But Shu doesn't give me that vibe. But I suppose I've only seen 2 Shu videos. Now, again, I don't think that if this is a PSYOP that Elon Musk is orchestrating it. I'm trying to be careful with what I say, because there's a lot of unknowns here and I don't want to accidentally misinform. And based on some of the comments in my last couple videos that I'm seeing, is a lot of people don't actually listen to all of the words that come out of my mouth. They only listen to parts of what I say. But the reason I don't think Elon is responsible is because he went from Kekius Maximus to back to Elon Musk within the span of this happening, within the occurrence. And the reason that he did this in general, changing his name, was was for a grift. He made money off of it. At the same time as him changing his name to this, there was a cryptocurrency called Kekius that suddenly increased a large amount of trading and value. And so I think those things are unrelated. And to go with, also, he is a 4chan groiper. This is the flag of Kekistan, which is what's like, the Pepe, the Roman names, all of this. It's all 4chan Nazi like bullshit. Now, obviously, Pepe isn't necessarily like Nazi shit, but it started out that way. It's often used by that side. It's also used by gamers, yeah. But this is what they're referring to when they say Kek, as in Kekius Maximus. It's Kekistan. This was trying to win back favor with the Nazis after the H-1B visa fallout, as well as trying to make some money on a grift. I don't think he had anything to do with that. Can we Photoshop the frog head onto it, his head, and make it an emote? You can absolutely do that. I'm not great at doing stuff like that, but you can give it a go. I can send the link in the chat description. There we go. For Elon, it is 2015. The selective hearing goes hard. True.
Breaking news.
True. So, on top of all of this, right, we have the shooting and what would the word be for, is it like a ramming attack? The vehicle attack in New Orleans. Between this and between the Cybertruck explosion, even though I'm going to do it now because they've said it too many times that my brain has to. We also had this happen last night. And before we get into covering this mass shooting at a Queens nightclub, again, I want to make it clear that a lot of this stuff is going to be over-reported on regularly, because that fear that comes from this, that energy of holy shit, we're being constantly attacked, we're under threat, that feeling produces desired outcomes for the right. They want a lot of Americans to feel afraid, because if they feel afraid, then the ability for them to be, whoa, and now my camera changed all of a sudden. If they're afraid, the ability for the people in power to manipulate what these people are willing to do, willing to suffer, and what they believe, it falls in with not only a history of what has occurred under the former Trump administration, but within the plans that they have laid out for the future. As actually we're going to see in a second, just as I was opening this.
Let's bring in
Tom Homan, our border czar, making a statement on Fox News. The threats aren't over, is at what it says. We'll have a look at this immediately after. They're going to be using these to rally the rest of the country around something like the National Guard being deployed to major cities, around something like ICE being able to go house to house looking for undocumented migrants. Whether or not all of these things occur doesn't matter. It's the justification.
There's a mass shooting at a Queens venue has sent 10 teenagers to the hospital. It happened late last night while a private event was taking place at the Visora concert hall in Jamaica.
And Alan Devlin is live outside Jamaica Hospital with what we know so far about those who were injured in the shooting. Alan?
Yeah, Mary, Doug, good morning to both of you. We now know that about 6 of the 10 victims who were shot here at that concert hall were all taken to this hospital here right behind me, the Jamaica Hospital Trauma Center, where thankfully they and the other 4 are expected to survive.
Are disagreeing up, Fox. He's just not the same kind of conservative. We've talked about this. There are factions within it. He wants the H-1B because he's a conservative that is part of the oligarchy. It benefits him. He doesn't care about you. None of the conservatives care about you. None of them do. They all care about what's good for them. Donald Trump is like on board with the H-1B stuff as well. It's not even like an Elon specific thing. Trump agrees, so you can't really make that claim. It is a very crazy start to the year, Cosmopolitics. But again, like this picture really does. It does give you a sense of what we can expect. It's almost like it's foreshadowing.
We're just about a quarter of a mile away from that concert hall where this shooting
Well, no one said that he's left. We just said, I'm not even going to argue.
took place. We're slowly learning more about the victims here. The NYPD says in total, at least 6 females and 4 males ages 16 to 19 were all shot in this incident. The 6 here at the Jamaica hospital, 3 males, 3 females with injuries ranging from gunshot wound to the leg, foot, arm, and buttocks to graze wounds to the back. The other 4, 3 females and 1 male taken to other area hospitals, including Long Island Jewish Medical Center.
Now, this unrelated to the terrorism, likely. But again, you're going to see a lot more of coverage of violence within the country, a lot more of coverage of possible terrorism that might occur, but also there is a chance of things being blown out of proportion, things being made into something that they're not, and also not to say that they're doing this. Again, I don't necessarily think that any of what's happening is connected to the actions right now of the right, yet, at least, on a greater coordinated level. But last time they did. They had the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers going and doing violence, and then they were going and blaming Antifa for it afterwards. That is still a possibility here, and we can't discount that as a possibility. Even if there's no evidence now of that being the case, this might not have anything to do with that, but there's still, I don't want to say a likelihood, but chances that we will see more of it if it fits in with expanding the narrative and justifying future actions.
The New York Presbyterian Queens Hospital and the Long Island Cohen Hospital. NYPD also says they are actively canvassing local medical centers for unaccounted for gunshot victims in relation to this incident, signaling the tally could increase in the coming hours. And again, thankfully, all of these victims are stable. They are all expected to survive. They're in. Which is good. I'm glad they're all going to live, but and we will watch Tom Homan in a second, but more on
just some breaking news now. The FBI
yesterday. This is another instance in Virginia of the largest seized cache of explosives in the history of the FBI. There are a lot of right-wing extremists in this country. A lot of those right-wing extremists are former military, and so it wouldn't be surprising if they started coordinating together outside of, not working with Trump or the GOP or any of that. These people could just be part of a militia. Or they could be entirely unrelated, and they could all just be mad about one thing or another. H-1B visas, Donald Trump agreeing with Elon Musk, could just be mad at nonsense that doesn't actually exist in reality. It's hard to tell with conservatives specifically because their thoughts don't tend to come straight out of logic and rational beliefs 100% of the time. Being a bit generous here.
To some breaking news now. The FBI arresting a Virginia man earlier this month after finding what prosecutors describe as the largest seizure of homemade explosives in Bureau history. In court documents, prosecutors say Brad Kenneth Spafford is an extreme danger to the community, and they're trying to keep him in jail. They say he had a stockpile of more than 150 pipe bombs, with some preloaded into a wearable vest.
Okay. Do I have to spell it out, right? No one has 1,000 pipe bombs and isn't going to, 150 or 1,500 or 1,000 or any number of pipe bombs is not trying to do terrorism. If you have more than one, I can see someone making a pipe bomb and throwing it in a river because they're like a 15-year-old and they want to see boom happen. Don't fucking do that, by the way. It's very much illegal and don't do it. But nobody has 1,000 or 100 pipe bombs and isn't planning to do terrorism. Also, the fact that he has preloaded one strapped into a vest tells you quite a lot.
Let's get right to our Ken Delaney. And Ken, what is Spafford charged with right now? What else did investigators say they found?
As of now, Valerie, he's only charged with illegally possessing a short-barreled unregistered rifle. But it seems pretty clear they're planning more charges. They were arguing to this federal judge that he should not be released on bond because he's a danger to the community, not only because they recovered that massive cache of explosives, but because he appears to be an anti-government extremist. They said that he was using pictures of President Biden for target practice, and he talked to a neighbor about bringing back political assassinations. So he appears to have some very extreme beliefs, and the federal
sounds like a Republican to me.
Government wants him behind bars. That's where he is right now, while a judge considers...
Again, not every Republican is like this, but for some reason, all of the people that do this are Republicans.
The evidence, Valerie.
We know he was only recently arrested, but this investigation goes back at least a year, right?
That's right. A neighbor became interested in him when he moved to the area near Norfolk, Virginia, and noticed that he had lost some fingers and learned that it was because of his handling of homemade explosives. And that neighbor provided the tip to the FBI and also apparently recorded this person secretly. So the FBI has been watching him for a while, but they only recently got a search warrant to go to the residence, and then they found the explosives.
And Ken, what is his lawyer saying about all of this?
Well, his lawyer is pushing back strongly against the idea that he's a danger to the community. He hasn't spoken.
Your Honor, the defendant is not a danger to the community. He has only 1,000 pipe bombs, and only some of those were preloaded into a vest. This broke yesterday, Mercury Shadow, but the arrest was a month ago. So it's just adding on to the amount of not only terrorism and violence being committed, but also how it's being reported in the media. Again, on top of the shooting in Queens, on top of the explosion in Las Vegas, and the driving through a crowd and the shooting in New Orleans, bringing up this guy from a month ago, now, to be clear, makes sense in forming the context of generally, you know, all of these cases are right-leaning individuals. These people are often former U.S. military, and forming the cohesive narrative of all of these being constantly reported on are going to be used to justify using the National Guard or some amount of force. I can understand. They're not doing that, though. They're just bringing up a guy from a month ago and reporting on it, because terrorism is in the news and extremism is in the news, and it will get clicks. That's not why they're doing it, and that's the issue. Free speech, freedom of religion, to possess pipe bombs, Second Amendment, exactly, yes. That's brain damaging, but also the Second Amendment does not protect your ability to have explosives, I'm pretty sure. The amount of conservatives who play devil's advocate for this behavior is vast, and they all think that they specifically are super duper unique and rare in this mentality. Yeah, it is. They're all like, a lot of those people are pretending too. And to be fair, if we're talking about people online, a lot of those aren't even people, they're just bots. It's a difficult situation, but when it comes to listening to the media report on something like this,
specifically,
there are reasons for things that they say and how they say them.
To the seizures of explosives, but he's saying that the idea that this man is dangerous and an anti-government extremist is overblown.
Remember that they want to give Luigi Mangione the death penalty, but yes, this guy apparently is not a danger to the community. They got Luigi like this instantly. Went and got him. They called him a terrorist. They said that he was a threat to the city of New York. The CEOs of Wall Street got group therapy that you paid for with your tax money. But this guy, no, it's not a danger to the community. Now, of course, it's his lawyer saying that, not, you know, the rest of the media, and not obviously the mayor of the town in Virginia that he's in, not the governor of Virginia. But also, did anyone hear terrorist as a word in this video? Because I sure as hell didn't.